All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:32. 2.0 adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments we need to make? 3.0 audience and communication.
I'd like to make an adjustment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Could you add 4.1.3, which will be review the articles prior to your next meeting?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, audience and communication. The purpose of this segment of the agenda is to provide for public comments. This is the audience's opportunity to address the board on action matters before the board at this meeting and or matters not on the agenda. Non-agenda topics will be referred to staff, taken under advisement, identify next steps, if any, or scheduled for a future meeting. If you want to participate, but it's for discussion matters, you can wait until we get to that part of the meeting. Does anyone in the audience have anything they want to talk about that's an action matter or something for a future agenda? Okay, 4.0 discussion matters. 4.1 budget work session. 4.1.1 association input regarding contemplated reductions. And do we have that? No? Okay.
I think we don't.
I received email from Chris, but it was, yeah, it didn't really talk.
She said she wasn't going to come.
Right, she said she was not. I don't know if anyone else from the teachers wants to provide input regarding the contemplated reductions. We also have gotten email from a teacher that I forwarded. Hopefully you all got
I got it
late this afternoon. But does anyone else in the audience want to speak to that agenda item?
I'm just not sure what the agenda item is. Is this to speak to reductions or increases in the budget? Or am I missing something here?
Well, the 4.1.1 is association, so the teachers' unions input regarding contemplated reductions in force.
You guys have a copy of this? I don't have one.
Oh yeah, there's some agendas up here if anyone needs one.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
You guys have any more copies? Julie. She said she.
All right, 4.1.2 decision packets final.
Did you already forward from the last? I had a question about the teacher contracts. So I was asked for this.
About the teacher contract?
You just said discussion matters regarding, was that the one? What was the one you were just at?
The audience participation part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go to the next step?
Yeah, we're on 4.1.1 association input regarding contemplated reductions.
I had a question
Okay.
before that, only because I was trying to hand these out.
Sure.
As far as the teacher negotiation, we haven't heard anything as far as taxpayers of the town. And I'd like to know where we're at with the teacher negotiation. Jill Lowry, by the way. And I have a second part to that question.
Okay, I can speak to that. Negotiations are ongoing. What's happened so far is that we've exchanged proposals on both sides. We've reviewed those proposals and we're discussing them. Nothing has been decided, and we expect to be able to make some kind of public statement after our meeting on next Tuesday about where we are at that time.
So does this budget reflect teacher negotiation?
Well, it doesn't reflect any exact agreement because there is no exact agreement.
So if there's an agreement, then that will be tacked on if it's above and beyond this budget?
No, we can't.
No.
We can only budget whatever budget we present and passes. And if the teacher contract, I mean, if the teacher, whatever's agreed upon, we can't meet under the terms of that budget, then we'd have to make reductions. I mean, we can't add on more to the taxpayers.
So my last question is, under the function summary for this year, the instructional increase is 5.47%. So if you're asking the taxpayers this year for a 5.47 increase, does that mean with a teacher negotiation that might be what they're gonna ask next year, that's part of their contract? So like if their contract is 5.47, that's what you're budgeting in, that I got off the website, does that mean that next year that could be added, you know, like 5 and 5 and 5?
Well, that 5% isn't an increase in salary to teachers.
That's what it says right here, instructional,
It's,
proposed budget 5.47 total.
That's the total of those functional areas. It includes salary and benefits and a slew of other stuff.
It's not a 5 point, whatever you said, teacher
5.47.
raise. That's not what, that's not a teacher, that doesn't represent a teacher raise.
Because it says instructional right on the top, and then it lists all the different teachers. Like, you know, kindergarten, Ventures, Omega, all that stuff. That's the way that my husband and I interpreted it.
Yeah, that's not what it
And
is.
total instructional program is 2.71.
Around here is that there is money in the budget for expected increase, which I don't think I'm at liberty to tell you, but there is a figure in there for that, which you're not going to see in any of these line items defined. The overall process remains what it has been in the past, which is something that's done, even though you're going to get an update in secret, but you won't have an answer to that until after the fact.
So there's no transparency here is what you're saying.
well, so how can we
What?
negotiate that?
Well, what I'm just asking is that Adora is doing a great job going, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's a huge undertaking going up against the big, you know, the school, the teachers union. You're like a little soccer mom with a squirt gun and they're like with big Uzis. So I thank you for doing that. But, you know, as us as taxpayers, you know, every year, it would be nice just to have a little bit more transparency. And that's, you know, speaking with Elaine and yourself, recently saying that you're sitting down and having conversation and actually not fighting against each other, which is a great thing. So I would just hope that that would be passed on to us taxpayers. So when you go to pass the school budget, if Clyde is saying that this is not something we can see,
Right.
that, you know, you should be more open if you could be, and if you can't be, try
Why
to
not?
educate all of us. That's all I'm asking.
But why couldn't you be transparent? I don't understand why that would be a secret. Why is that a secret since it's a publicly funded by our private funds? I don't understand why that would not be transparent. Is there an answer for that, or?
Well, it has to do with the dynamics of the negotiation and what is going to make things more contentious or more inflamed, and what will help us get through the process in a way that works for the most people.
What do you mean
So
the most people? Who are you speaking? Who are you
I'm
referring to?
speaking of the communities, everyone involved.
You don't
So if
think
we're
people wanna know?
if we're negotiating, and if we say this is the amount of money, how can we negotiate? It's not a negotiation. We have, it just doesn't work that way. We're coming to the table with our best offer, the union's coming to the table with their best offer. If we don't, we have to put a number in the budget, we're not sure where we're going to land. But the negotiations,
I think I can clarify for you a little bit. They're not trying to hide it from you, they're trying to hide it from the union. But if they tell you, the union's gonna find out. Does that make sense? 'Cause you're negotiating with the union. If the union says, okay, you have this much money potentially budgeted, we want it. And you're gonna be in a lesser position to negotiate if they know that you're prepared to spend that much money. It's like when you go to buy a used car. You don't tell them how much you're willing to pay. You know, you try to negotiate the best that you can.
Right,
It would be nice to be transparent, but I guess I understand your position.
yeah.
okay. So, unless there is association input regarding contemplated reductions, we'll move on to 4.1.2, decision packets final. And I don't know, are we having a presentation or there's nothing?
I provided just 3 pages of the previous presentation. And the only changes on it in comparison to the last one, is on the first slide that says proposals for budget reductions. And
Wait a second. Did you get this tonight?
yes. Yeah. The one you're holding, Adora, right there, you're looking,
This?
nope,
This?
that one.
This part was, no.
Okay.
So it just has under the fourth row down under corresponding reductions in EA and world language staff, the board had asked us to explore what those would be if the middle level reduction of 2.0 FTE content area teachers happened. So we began to do that analysis, and these are estimates of what potential additional reductions in expressive arts would be. So it's approximately a 0.2 FTE world language reduction, and then a 0.1 FTE in phys ed.
And just to clarify, and no further reductions to art at this time.
Okay.
And music is not impacted, as we talked about last meeting, because fewer, the middle school music program is essentially choruses. So the fact that you have fewer instructional groups running through the school day doesn't impact the fact that you have the same number of choruses to provide instruction
Bands.
for.
Yeah. So do we have any, I don't want to go out of order, but do we have any new firmer numbers from you, Bob, on anything?
Yes, at any point in time you'd like to get to my items, we can do that.
I guess I think that makes sense to go before the decision packets, because they're part of the
Well,
whole.
I'll tell you, before we do that, my answers aren't gonna change any of the numbers on the sheet of paper. I was asked to find, to poke at the quality of the numbers and make sure they were correct. And I've done that, but you can do them in whatever order you'd like.
Well, yeah, if you could give us that which we've poked you for first, that might just.
Okay, on page 2, you, what was the question on the top one? No, the art, where's the art?
Yes, second row.
Okay,
Second one.
the art, second one down, 9680. Someone did the math. If 0.1 FTE is 9680, 1.0 FTE is $96,800, and wondered if that was correct. It is. A fully compensated teaching professional position in art right now carries with it a $96,000 total compensation price tag.
Okay.
Okay?
It's the para, There's the two paras.
Here's the two paras on here.
It's right here.
Oh,
Intensive
two
classroom
paras, 63,322. Mr. Mason spoke an error the last time. He indicated that benefits over and above salary are about a 25% add to salary. That's true in total across the full spectrum of positions, but at a para position, it is closer to 50%. 50% in salary is added to about 50% in benefits to get to total compensation for positions. So each of those two para positions carries about a $31,000 price tag. Half of that is benefit, half of it is salary. Salary is in the order of magnitude of $12.50 an hour or something like that.
And Bob, that assumes the highest benefit election, correct?
Right, that's,
It assumes a benefit election towards the high end of the spectrum, not necessarily full family, but something well above a single.
There were technology questions.
Those I have answered.
Okay.
The question was raised on the assistant cross-country coach and its comparison to CVU coaches' positions in,
I have it here, the recs, yeah. I have my
What do you
current, I have
tell-
my current salaries.
yes. But the salaries, my point was gonna be the salaries come from the union agreement that you've all approved and have currently in place with your teaching staff. Costs for coaches, both assistant and Full coaches are set within the schedule. They're based on a percentage of the base amount in the teacher salary schedule, and they are consistent among K-8 schools. The K-8 matrix varies a little bit from the high school matrix, more so because the positions change dramatically when you go to the high school. But it's all set in here, so there's no flexibility, if you will, at this point in time, once the decision is made to hire a coach or an assistant coach.
Excuse me, Kristen. I believe my question last week, or last meeting was, I was asking what the actual salary of the full-time coach of the cross-country team was.
I have that, Jill. The current salary or stipend for the cross-country coach is $4,318 and some change.
Full-time?
The cross-country coach.
Full-time for 40,
Full-time.
for 40 cross-country player.
Yes.
Okay.
So the assistant coach makes the same amount as the full-time?
That's the estimated amount based on, as Bob has mentioned, based on the contract of what.
It's slightly less.
Yeah, it's slightly less.
So it's $8,000, or a little bit more than $8,000 for both the coaches for cross-country?
Can you say that again? I couldn't hear you, Rhea.
Cross-country for the assistant and the head cross-country coach is over $8,000?
It's the cross-country together.
Together
Yes.
combined?
Yeah. Mhm.
Was that everything on your list, Bob?
No, the other one, someone asked me, and Audrey's gonna have a better handle on where it was asked, but there was a question on Medicaid and what the school has in its Medicaid balance. I've handed you a sheet of paper profiling Medicaid for Charlotte. Looks like these 2 pages. You're gonna end up knowing more about Medicaid than you ever wanted to know. On the first page, when all schools are listed, if you bring your attention to the Charlotte line, this shows the balance in the Medicaid account as of July 1st, 2012 and 2013, and then the budgeted number that's planned to be spent this year to get to a balance available. So there's $81,000 in the Medicaid account as of June 30th, 2013. Audrey and Greg are planning to spend this year about $26,000, leaving $55,000 available for use elsewhere. And the budget is on the opposite side of the page. What they're planning to spend that in is in support of a physical education teacher, 0.4 FTE.
No, we're not doing that. It's for the .6
For the
FT.
current year.
Oh,
For
for the
this
current,
current, yeah.
okay, but for
Yes.
next year, we're,
Yes. But the question was currently and a little bit of history.
so, and explain to me, even though we can use the Medicaid money towards that .6, it still is included in the budget as a decision packet, even though, I can't never understand how that works. Because if we're getting Medicaid money, we wouldn't need to raise the taxes for that amount.
Right, but the election to use Medicaid money doesn't necessarily change your expenditures, it changes your revenue. So on the revenue page, what you all finally decide you're going to do may change the amount of revenue drawdown that shows up on the revenue page in support of the school, thereby lowering net spending and lowering taxes. But if you're planning to spend money for whatever purpose, it's gonna show up on your expenditure budget. And if it's an addition to what you're currently planning, then we need to add that to your budget. So that's why it shows up as an add on these expenditure sheets that you're looking at. When we add in the revenue changes, then it will zero out, if that's the sort of transaction we're talking about.
Well, I was thinking about it just because, you know, if we adopted all of the decision packets, the additions and the reductions, we're down 21, or it's a savings of $21,000. If you add that 50, it's 70, and that's like a percentage point on our budget, right? I was just thinking, like,
The two of them added
Yeah.
together? Yes,
okay,
that's fair.
okay. And Greg, you looked into technology?
Yes, there were some questions about the process that we go about in terms of securing technology bids and different options that we could be looking into relative to getting hardware, specifically laptops. So we had a conversation with our tech steering committee, and I talked to Mike Canfor, who who basically runs the bidding process for the laptops. He says the specs on those machines that they've put out for bid haven't changed a lot in the last 3 years. There haven't been any significant breakthroughs in terms of technology, so the specs have been pretty similar over the last 3 years, with the exception of maybe asking for upgrading RAM. They have looked into, in the past, refurbished laptops. Depending on where you are in terms of what machines are on the market that are coming off lease, or what machines are on the market that are being refurbished, those look more desirable or not. With laptops, because our laptops get a lot of use, we're looking, Mike stressed the durability of the machine is really important, the way the case is put together, and that we are not quick to purchase machines that are already dated to some extent. So careful about that. We do purchase refurbished desktops, and we found them to meet our needs. However, that's not as desirable in the laptop area, although it is looked into. I also asked Mike to explore the opportunity to enter into a lease agreement with companies around laptops. I was speaking to a colleague at Essex Town who do much of their hardware procurement around leases. And you have a certain expense per machine per year, and after 3 years, you don't own those machines, but you'd be buying new machines anyway. So we're looking into that as well. The question came up as to whether we could sell the machines we're retiring, and the machines that we're retiring in question are netbooks. We can sell them. They're not worth a heck of a lot of money. They're worth about $20 a piece. So all told, we could maybe get ourselves around $800 for if we were to sell all the netbooks. That's the information I have relative to that. But we're basically going to look for the best deal for a computer that is going to be durable and that's going to run reliably on our network. There's a difference between a machine that you'd buy off the shelf to run on your home network or to run at home, in terms of what it needs to do as compared to run reliably on our network based on various software components and various things going on in the network.
So in the end, having discovered all that, these are still the numbers we should be looking at?
Yes, I mean, these numbers are based on $800 a machine for the laptops. There's a chance we may do better than that, but that's the estimate we're giving based on the bid we've secured in the last couple of years for machines that have proven to be solid and reliable and that we like. Yeah.
And if we don't sell the netbooks, what happens to them? I mean, what would typically, they're just around as backups, or?
No, if we
loaned
don't
out to
sell
kids?
them, I mean, maybe there'd be a handful of them that we'd deploy in some fashion. But then eventually we'd have to, there's an e-cycle setup where you have to put them on a pallet and wrap them, and over the summer, a company will come and pick them up and e-cycle them. But it's work for us, and it's.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about, there's many schools that have one-on-one computers for middle-aged and high school kids. You wonder if you could, let the older kids who don't have ready access at home have a dated netbook. But anyway, that's really not for this budget. All right, any questions or comments from the board or Megan?
With respect to technology?
Or just to all the decision packets before we open it up to the audience?
Yeah, I guess I should, I don't know if now's the right time. You're talking about
yeah.
all the decision packets?
Sure.
Just in the discussion portion last week, you know, I was trying to follow along and understand the rationale behind the configuration committee recommendations, and basically, you know, understanding the process and, you know, becoming comfortable with, you know, their recommendations. So that all sort of made sense to me, and that's fine. I did want to sort of preface this meeting by saying I should probably recuse myself from the para line item because my wife's a para.
Okay.
So, again, I guess on the rest of it, it's hard to disentangle the pieces. So on the rest of it, you know, I understand that some of the cuts are predicated on being able to do that. And I, you know, understand and sort of accept the judgment of the committee, and it made sense to me, but I don't want to specifically, I think, vote on the para line item.
Okay.
There was a question about whether some of the items toward the end of the last few decision-making, about the PTO.
Yeah, we met with some of the PTO executive board members yesterday just to share. I think the 3 items that were discussed were the early readers, the sporting uniforms, and the science supplies. And they were going to look into our request. They can't guarantee that based on the funding that they have, the fundraising they're doing this year, but they are looking into that.
Okay. Any other questions here, or should I open it up to?
All right. Would anyone in the audience like to talk about we're still on decision packets final, but I guess really it's sort of the only opportunity just to talk about the budget as a whole, I guess.
Yep.
So, if you can raise your hand, and once I call on you, if you can just state your name, so RETN and Sandy has it. Yes.
Hi, I'm Susan Krockenberg. I'm a Charlotte resident, and I'm going to speak to the budget. But before I do that, I want to say that until recently, I have strongly supported educational budgets in Charlotte, that my youngest son attended CCS and benefited greatly from it, and that I hold the teachers in high esteem. That said, I want to speak against the extension of the mixed length day kindergarten program to a full day program at the expense of $32,495. I would argue that the whole extended daycare program be eliminated if I thought that was a possibility at this point. My argument is based on what I read as the very best evidence on this question, reported in peer-reviewed journals in which authors have compiled data from multiple studies statistically in order to provide the strongest results. And what they show is that there are statistically significant but very small benefits academically at the end of kindergarten for a full-day program relative to half-day programs, but that these academic benefits are eliminated by grade 3. And further, that others report, or that children are reported to have more behavioral problems in full-day kindergarten relative to half-day, and that they also express less positive attitudes towards school. So, with that as background, I won't support the CCS budget that includes funds to expand the full-day kindergarten program, and I will urge others to take that stance as well, because its academic effects are small and short-lived, and its negative effects on children would outweigh what might be considered positive effects. Thank you.
Would anyone else have a question or a comment?
My name is Bob Mazaris. I'm also a Charlotte resident. There was a meeting here last November, which unfortunately I couldn't attend because we were away, about the physical condition of the school and the need to have a major capital improvement program to basically rebuild the school. Where is that in this budget, and what's the status of that project?
It is not in this budget. That would be done under a vote for a bond. That continues to be talked about, and there will be many more meetings before something is done on that scale.
So the facilities committee is still meeting. They haven't made any recommendations about a time frame or the scale of any proposed project.
Okay. A general comment. I moved here 10 years ago from New Jersey, and it's no secret what my taxes are. Anybody can look at our assessment in the grand list and multiply it by the rate. When we moved here 10 years ago, the taxes on our house were $13,000. I wrote out a check last year for $26,000 and change for my property taxes. That's a lot of money.
I've seen the same thing, about 50%.
Almost
increase.
90% of our assessment goes to this school. I think the board is avoiding a hard decision which has been made in Middlebury, not Middlebury, in Whitehall and in Bennington. They took the school system private. They took it out of the hands of the unions. The unions had to go back if they want to, and they can reunionize. But the reason why is because the boards weren't listening to the concerns of the taxpayers. I think there's going to be a growing movement among the taxpayers in this town to see radical change in how this school is managed. And if we can't, if the board cannot take action and cut costs, then the taxpayers will take action and force the board to make change. I'm saying this very calmly and very smoothly because I don't want to let my anger come out and offend anybody. I know you folks are working hard. I know you're trying to do good jobs. But we've heard the term multiple times that this is an investment that we're being asked to make in the school system. We're beyond that. This is a sacrifice. We're being asked to make big sacrifices for this school. And I think the people of Charlotte are going to begin to wonder whether it's really worth it. So I leave it at that. I plant the seed. I think the people of Charlotte should start talking among themselves about what the options are, especially in light of what this town may have to spend to rebuild this school.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead,
Jill
Jill.
Lowry. I had a question for Bob Mason the last meeting as well. It was, what was the average cost per pupil in the state of Vermont? And I didn't hear back from you, Bob, and I didn't know if you had that number today.
I did forget the question. I will find it before you leave tonight.
Because if we pass this budget, the average price in Charlotte will be $16,011 per pupil. Actually, I did look it up on the internet, and it was about $12,347, I believe, per pupil for the state of Vermont. So this gentleman is correct that being in Charlotte for over 20-something years, every year, you know, we want to invest in our kids, and having children here and gone through the school, you know, being on the PTO for 9 years, you know, I've invested my heart and soul in this school, and it's unsustainable right now. You know, to talk about hiring you know, I'm not harping on cross country, but you know, when you ask the district office how much the average cost of a cross country coach is at the last meeting is $4,000. I asked a question to the board, and you know, what do we pay the head coach? We didn't know till this meeting. You know, to go and put something in a packet when, you know, the average price, well, the cost for a coach of football at CVU is $1,200. They work 7 days a week, and they get a lot of volunteers. I don't understand why, you know, $4,000 is a lot of money right now, you know? You know, people are just at their wits' end. Last year, we had a 12% increase in our town in our taxes. CVU's budget for the high school is they're asking for a 10% increase. You know, I think everybody's just maxed out. So I'm all from our school, but we need to work together and make sure some of these numbers are not as high as they are. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Jenny Oster. I had a few comments. I would say part of the issue that our town is in is that the local share on providing support for the town, and the cost of the town has gone up substantially versus what the state contributes and the federal contributes to the bottom line, both in our town expenses and here with the school. So part of that equation of our property taxes going up is to reflect how our taxes are, you know, coming in and supporting. We're not getting the share that used to come from other folks. Secondly, on the full-day kindergarten, it's $32,000 is a really small amount of money. And if you look at Charlotte, we have the second highest mean household income in the state of Vermont. But we all know that doesn't reflect our entire town. Those kids that could probably benefit the most from having full-day kindergarten, the very small amount of money that would come from our taxes for that $32,000 would provide, I would say, the greatest benefit to those kids. And for such a small investment, I think for those kids, it would be a great benefit. For those parents, families that can provide an afternoon enrichment during September through December on their own, more power to them. There's nothing that stops them. Kindergarten's not mandatory in Vermont, so in the afternoons, everyone would have the right to take their kids and do what they want with them in the afternoons. That's what they wanted during those months. But for those kids that don't have that benefit, don't have that family structure, I really think that full-day kindergarten provides something for them. And my last one will be on enrichment. I know it wasn't part of the decision package. It's something I care a lot about in the school. And we lost the enrichment coordinator 3 years ago. Is that right? And now it's kind of haphazardly run by parents here and there after school. And I would really love to see in a town that has the kind of, doesn't have to deal with some of the poverty issues that other towns have to, that we could provide a school that has those enrichment opportunities for our kids. And I understand that we're trying to give and take on the balance of what we can do in budgets, but I just think that that's something that our schools should be doing.
Can I just clarify a couple things?
Of course.
So one thing is that CVU finalized its budget last night, and their budget is going up 1.65%, not 10. And the CVU coaches are on in the same contract as us, so I'm not sure exactly how 1,200 figures into that because they are under the same contract.
But they also get paid by the boosters, and there's other stipends,
Right.
I believe, that
Right.
portray. So I had talked to somebody from that whole
Group.
group,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I got the number from. So running a youth football program with 142 kids
I'm
and
sorry.
everything, so.
I thought you said CVU.
No, I did,
football
but I'm
coach.
just saying, in
Okay.
general, it blows my mind to pay $4,000 for assistant coach for 40 kids. That's $100 per kid for 6 weeks. And I am all
Yeah,
about
no, I
cross-country, and I love sports, trust me.
Yeah.
I'll do anything for any kid in any school. But, you know, when it comes to saving maybe a program at school or an art program or something, you know,
Yeah.
we have parent volunteers, so that's why I feel that number is very high.
Yeah, no, I wasn't questioning that. I
So-
just wanted to make sure that nobody left here and started saying that we have a differential in paying coaches at CVU than here. If we do, they get paid more, not less.
So can I ask you a question about
Yeah.
the CVU budget, just quickly? So I got an email today from a board member from CVU, and they told me that it was proposed to go up 10% because they weren't putting the turf field bond out.
It's 1
So-
point,
So this is from your last night meeting?
yes.
Okay, so I wasn't told properly today.
Yeah, no, it's 1.65% is the increase in their
1.6
budget.
what?
1.65%
Okay.
increase.
Thank you.
Jill, I just wanted to clarify too, I did speak to the athletic director at CVU regarding the salary differences, and so I think the main coaches are paid under the contract that Bob referred to, and then he mentioned there's the honorarium for the assistant coaches because of the size of the football team, they can't have that many coaches under the contract. So those people are funded under the booster.
Right, that's what I
The booster fund, which is about $1,500 for the assistant coaches, but they're not under. And our particular contract for the K-8 is under the contract, so that's why we're in line with that.
But what I'm saying is that you're gonna pay $4,000 for 40 students.
Right.
That's, that ratio, that's a great job. So,
I guess.
For 6 weeks.
For 6 weeks. And I guess I'm wondering why you can't have volunteers for cross-country. I mean, it's not that difficult to run cross-country. To have over $8,000 for people to say, okay, you need to run this amount of distance? Really? $8,000 for that? Well, I don't understand why the parents of the cross-country kids don't volunteer and save us $8,000. That's a lot of money. I know to some people in this town, apparently that isn't a lot of money. To me, that's a lot of money. I'm just saying, why can't you have volunteers for cross-country?
I would
That's
say
not a
currently there are
difficult
people who are
sport.
volunteering, parents who do volunteer.
Then why do we need two coaches? I don't understand
how
that.
much,
enrollment
how
has
much do we
grown.
actually pay the basketball coaches?
I don't have that, I have to look at the
It'd be all the
contract.
same formula.
It'd be
So
the
we
same
have-
formula.
We have 4 basketball coaches, we have 4 soccer coaches, and we have presently one cross-country coach.
So we pay $8,000 to the basketball coaches.
It would
Girls
be
and
roughly
boys.
that amount,
It'd be
because it's
roughly
just
that much,
based
yeah.
on the
Okay.
formula of the contract. So there's 2 boys coaches for each
2 girls
sport and
coaches,
2
yeah.
girls coaches for each sport. Cross-country's the only co-ed sport, and they have 1 coach. So if we had a girls' cross-country and a boys' cross-country, then maybe it might make more sense to people that we'd have 2 coaches, but maybe because it's one big team, it's harder
And
to.
Audrey, are you in charge of the salaries of the coaches, or Greg, or do you guys split that?
No, I'm not, there's,
It's in a
it's based
contract.
on the contract of where they come in,
Okay,
so.
okay, thank you.
All right, who's next? Let's get to people who haven't talked yet, and then we can go back if you have something else. Mandy and then Jeff.
Mandy Koskinen. I am one of the co-presidents of the PTO here at CCS. And I just wanted to put forth the idea that some of us are concerned that the board is more and more looking to the PTO as a funding source for some of these line items that are being left out of the budget. And while we are very happy to give as much as we can back to the school, our major focus is enrichment and providing extra experiences for kids at CCS that are above and beyond the regular school day. So while we are happy to give as much as we possibly can to things that come out of the budget, it's really not our focus as a PTO. There are some PTOs in the SU that do not fund any line items that are left out of their school budgets. They are purely working for enrichment on top of what is the regular classroom experience. So I just wanted to say that I'm hopeful that the PTO can kind of remain in that realm, because every year our budget does change. It's purely based on fundraising and direct donations. So it's hard for us to look at some of these bigger ticket items and decide where are we going to get that in our budget too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Andy? This is really helpful that you're articulating that. It's helpful to me. And I'm wondering, of the 3 things that we asked to see whether the PTO might consider funding, do you feel like those are all the same with regard to what you're talking about?
No, we looked at the uniform item as something that is kind of an extra, something that goes for, it's outside of what we would consider kind of the regular school budget. You know, science supplies are something that we would really like to see remain in the budget. We would like to fund extra science, the planetarium coming to the school, that kind of thing, and not regular budget science items.
Okay, that helps me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff?
I have a couple of questions and then.
Can you just say your name first,
I'm
sorry?
sorry, I'm Jeff Morton. And I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. One was, I'm wondering about if you could explain how the school derives Medicaid dollars. Is that some kind of formula, and are those dollars available to all schools in the state, and are we obtaining the maximum amount of Medicaid funds that we're eligible for at this time?
The school earns Medicaid credits from the federal government providing services that years ago were provided under the Medicaid umbrella directly rather than schools being asked to perform those sorts of services or deliver them. As a result of that, they get credits in the form of checks for work or services they provided to children under Medicaid, and they deposit those in accounts. They're obligated to spend Medicaid money earned on specific items that are generally in support of the pool of children with which the services were earned on. And in addition, they can't use the money to supplant services. So they can't take something that's in the budget today and put that on their Medicaid investment plan. It has to be something new to the school to be eligible for use of Medicaid funds. The funds are retained until invested back in the school, so it can be a retained balance from year to year. The only thing we ask Greg and Audrey to do is to not plan to spend Medicaid money they don't yet have in hand.
I would just add that you earn money for Medicaid based on services to Medicaid eligible children, not every kid. So the services to Medicaid eligible children, and the idea is that the money you spend should benefit those children.
In all schools within the SU earn Medicaid credits and have some sort of investment plan to spend that money.
And we really do try to maximize every dollar.
My second question, I'm one of those residents who has not been attending these meetings, and so forgive me for this question, but I need to ask if you could just briefly summarize, again, the points of reduction that you're looking at in instructional assistance in the middle school, where those reductions are going to be in the middle school.
So I can share that with you. The one item that we're looking at is on the first page. I'm not sure if you have it in front of you. But we're looking at reduction of 2.0 FTE middle level equivalent of content area teachers at the middle level. And then the corresponding reductions, that would be at the expressive arts and world language.
So I guess I would just say that one of the things as a parent that I look at is that and in reading about the discussions that have been taking place during this meeting and some of the concerns that citizens are bringing forward, I think a lot of people are concerned because school population is going down, but I see with my own child, for example, that she's in a class with 26 other students. That's a large class. And then we're also looking simultaneously at some possible reductions in skilled instructional assistants in trying to be able to find a way to make this budget move forward this year. And one of the things that keeps striking me as we talk about the dilemma of what to do with our school budget and also other larger expenses that are pending, such as capital expenses that are going to probably be needed, is that it seems like over and over again, what doesn't get addressed here, and it's not going to be addressed here tonight, and it's not the place, and I understand that, but it's the lack of revenue that we have in this town. And it's our farmers, and it's our small shopkeepers, and it's property owners who are funding all of this. And we live in a community where we're not business friendly. It seemingly is that we don't want business to come here. It's difficult to get a tea house approved at a berry farm, for example. I mean, it just doesn't seem, as people are talking, sustainable over time, that everything can just rest on those individuals who are currently funding all of this. And it feels like we're going to come back to this over and over and over again, and I don't know how that's going to be sustained over time. I don't think any of us do. And so what happens is this dynamic back and forth of people looking at $4,000 or $8,000, which I agree is not a small amount of money, but I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is we don't have enough money. And many towns have development offices, they have people who specifically are searching for business to come into their community. And again, we're not going to solve that tonight, but one of the things that many of us have to acknowledge, and this is not pertaining to those people who have lived here, most of their lives or whatever, but many of us chose to come here wanting this kind of environment and knowing that there was very little revenue here other than property taxes, et cetera. And I don't know, I just feel like until we get to some of the other questions of how we're going to develop more revenue in this town, we'll keep having this argument. Because as one parent, when I look at this, when I look at coming back to specifics, when I see the improvements that are needed just in maintaining the buildings and the amount of kids that are in the middle school classes and looking at reduction in instruction for the first time ever, I am questioning whether or not I'm going to support this budget this year because of reductions that are being made. Whereas other people understandably are questioning whether they want to support this budget because it's increasing by 3-point-some-odd%, I believe. It's just a real dilemma, and I think that we have to look at revenue throughout the course of the year. Otherwise, we keep smacking into this same issue at this time of the year every year, and I don't know how that's going to change. So my final point, I'm sorry I've taken so much time, is that I'm really concerned about the reductions in instruction in middle school, as I know you are, and I personally am hoping that's not going to happen, even though that would mean that the budget would come in at a higher amount than it's currently sitting at. But I think we really have to look at how much can we place on our existing teachers, who I marvel at what I see, for example, the 5th grade teachers doing right now with the number of students that they have. And really, it sounds like over time we're going to be asking for teachers within that age group to take on even more.
Except that they have actually people that are coming into those grades that have 26 students, which really I don't consider a lot of students, but that's an opinion, and you're entitled to yours.
Sure.
But they have paraeducators coming in to help
Rhea,
those teachers. To help those teachers. He was doing the same thing. Are you going to do the same thing again like you did last time?
We have comments and questions.
I know, but he was directing him towards me, so I'm directing him back. We have 2 paraeducators. Okay, I'll talk to you. Here we go. We have 2 paraeducators that are coming in to supplement those extra students, because there isn't 23, there's going to be 26 or what have you, to help with that burden. So it isn't just one teacher. For the classes that are having a raise in class, in students, they're having paraeducators there. So you're a little bit off because you haven't been here, but there are paraeducators that will be in that class to help those teachers.
Well, that's, just to clarify, that's for 5th grade, not for the 6th through 8, where the reductions will be. Were you finished with your point, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Rita, do you have something else?
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't hear you.
Does anyone else have something they want to say? Colleen?
Sure.
And can you just say your name?
Colleen Brady.
Thank you.
I'm in a maybe unique position of being both a taxpayer and somebody who receives their check from the taxpayers. And in fact, every year when my husband writes the tax bill, he sometimes jokes and says he should just make it out to me, which I don't really think is very funny. But, so I feel it from both ends. I'd like to speak to the kindergarten and the full-day kindergarten as a teacher who receives those children. And I have enormous respect for you, Susan, and the years that you've put into studying all of this research. But I have to say that as a practitioner, I've seen enormous changes in what's being expected of kids. And a full-day kindergarten, in my opinion, serves a lot of purposes. I think the expectations in terms of the Common Core is increasing what's being expected of kids. So I think that a full-day kindergarten would better prepare kids for the expectations all the way down the road. On the flip side of that, I also see that
having a full-day kindergarten allows those teachers, the expectations are there whether the children are here for a full day or not. And so when the children are not here for a full day, the expectations get crammed into a shorter period of time, which, in my opinion, adds to greater kind of intensity of trying to get those kids to meet those expectations with a shorter amount of time. So I feel that a full-day kindergarten would not only help prepare those kids better for what's coming down the road, but also lend just the tiniest bit of ease in terms of that instruction, so that those kids wouldn't feel quite so much like it's being kind of crammed into a shorter period of time. So I'm fully in support of the full-day kindergarten. And I also really agree with Jenny's point that, that we really need to be thinking about all the kids in this town who could really, truly benefit from being here for a full day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet?
I'm Erin Heyer, and I would like to support what Susan said as a taxpayer and as well as a clinician. And I think this is a much grander conversation. You mentioned Common Core, and I think that's a whole nother ball of wax. But there is very, very little evidence over the last 70 years to support either preschool or early ed. And I just think, you know, as I said, it's a much bigger, more complicated conversation. But I think one of the variables that need to be addressed is really our expectations, and is it appropriate for us to expect certain behaviors, academic and social, at the kindergarten and the first grade level. So I really think that we need to look, I think as a community, but as a state and even as a country, that we're walking down the wrong path, and we're going to 20 years from now, just like we did 20 years ago when we switched the whole reading from phonics to whole language, we are not making really good choices for the future generation of our kids. And I don't think throwing more money is the answer. We need to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it to make a difference. And I do think it's critical that we look at line items and that we understand exactly where our money is going. And just throwing more money in a big pot doesn't really measure the outcomes and measure what ends up with our kids 10 years from now and 20 years from now. And I hope that we can talk about this as a community as well as a state, because I do think Common Core is going to be a really, really bad decision. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I think just throwing another $32,000 into the kindergarten pot isn't going to really save anybody.
I forgot to ask you, Greg, if you found anything out about, one of the things we talked about was how many of our kids go home at the end of their half day and how many kids go to Charlotte Children's Center or some other.
I don't have that information. That question escapes me.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? And then we could do Jill and Bob again. No? All right, so Jill.
I just.
And can you say your name, Joe?
Joey. We all have our things that we like and not like in this like packet, but then I just want to remind people that if you don't like it, I'm gonna vote no on it. Just remember 3 years ago, when they come back, we're gonna cut some more, come back, we'll cut less some more. The budget is not gonna go up. There's only one way down. So if you don't like it because they didn't fund it or they fund this or one way or the other, the board will come back and they will cut the slide some more. So just be really cautious about how you want to. I mean, how do I can't see.
Focus it up there, like you do to me.
Okay, so basically, I'm cautious that people need to really think about how they want to vote, because that is going to affect the next one. If it does not pass, they will come back and we'll sit here and we will cut like some more. And I think the hard decision is that what are we going to cut? And I think the board probably do as best as they can, or maybe they can do a better job. So as a community, we keep saying, well, don't do this, or do this and do this. What can community offer? Let somebody else do the volunteer. Let somebody like do this and that. So I mean, it is hard decision because I'm seeing this for the last 3 years, and I think this will be going for the next like 3 years. We'll keep coming back. We'll cut like 0.1 here, and 0.2 there, and 0.5 there. And so I think the community, if you really want to help, I think that we should get together and really think about how we want to address the, you know, the revenue questions and the expense questions, and the fixed costs are going up. That is a given. So whether or not we have 100 students or 500 students, some of the fixed costs are going to go up. You know, the fuel costs are going to go up. And so, like I said, my point is I caution people when you want to vote on the budget, think about the ramification. Thank you.
I'm Vince Krockenberg. I think the issues that are presented here around this school budget are so large and so complex, it's kind of hard to kind of grab onto something. But here's my concern, and I think I'm building off both what Susan and Aaron said here. There is growing evidence that this movement that we are on in the United States is taking us down probably the wrong direction for public education in this country. The emphasis on standardized testing, on core curricula, on taking away the responsibility for teachers to organize their own curriculums in the way that they see fit. There's just wonderful evidence from around the world that there are better ways to organize instruction than that. And if I could just make a quick reference to, go look at what's happening in Finland. It's almost exactly the opposite of what we're doing in this country. And even if you look at the differences socioeconomically, ethnically, and every other way between the United States and Finland, those differences still remain. And if we begin to move contrary to the way the evidence points us, I mean, why would anybody want to fund a school system that does that? And if the evidence is, as Susan described it, minimal impact of full-day kindergarten that washes out after 3 years or so, why would we want to do that? Why would we even want to do this core curriculum thing that everybody is now latching onto? And privatization, Bob, if we want to let billionaires run our schools, I think we're going to have them in worse shape at the end of all of this rather than in better shape. So I realize that's all kind of rambling. But my concern is this. One, do you believe the evidence that Susan presented on this, that the effects of full-day kindergarten, and I have massive respect for Colleen Brady, by the way. Our child went through a program when Colleen was one of his teachers. But the evidence is to the contrary. So do you just let that evidence go by, or do you say, well, we don't accept the evidence, we're going to do this instead? But if you do accept the evidence, then I don't see how you can approve full-day kindergarten.
Well, we've had presentations from a kindergarten study committee that did evidence, and it's not just outcomes after third grade. I mean, I don't want to get into the debate. We've had this debate a lot of times, yeah. But it's benefits beyond how they're performing in third grade and beyond. It's as Colleen said, kids have to do a lot more once they get to first grade and in second grade. So I mean, we heard a very long, maybe half-hour long presentation last year.
By whom?
Yeah.
By whom?
By our kindergarten study committee, and that was presented at last
Is there
March.
documentation on what research they reviewed?
Yes.
Where can I find that?
So, you know, I was kind of just checking a reference here, but Kristen Gessman, who is a professor at St. Mike's, did a presentation for all of the SU board last spring, I think, on the benefits of not necessarily full-day kindergarten, but rich vocabulary for kids, that kind of thing, and the gap that there is.
Right, you're talking about the achievement gap, and that has nothing to do with preschool or kindergarten.
Well, we imagine, though, that in a good
Well, you can't imagine, you
preschool,
need to look at the data. with all due respect. I mean, seriously, I
So-
can show you lots of data. 70 years that we studied what preschool and where Head Start actually got us. It's exactly what
I
Susan
do know the
said.
Head Start data.
Huh?
I am familiar with the Head Start data.
Right, it's exactly what Susan said. It washes out by 3rd grade. There are other ways to address that achievement gap. Throwing money at a full-day kindergarten isn't really the answer. I can show you my data, you show me yours, and we can have a discussion, but seriously.
Well, Erin, we certainly can make available the kindergarten study.
I would love that.
I'd like to see it also.
And is it, it might be on our, it's probably on the website.
If you go back to last year.
If we go back to last year,
Dr. Coleman, back in 1972, started an 18-year study looking at Head Start.
And I want to just make the point that we're not, and the kindergarten committee realized this last year, we're not deciding between a half-day program and a full-day program. Most of the research that's out there, and you can find lots of data, I think, that support both sides of the opinion. You really can. But almost all of the research, it points at half-day versus full-day. I haven't seen any research or any article that points directly towards a hybrid program like ours. We have 60% of a full-day program. So for 4 months out of the year, we have a half-day program. And there are an innumerable amount of learning opportunities that happen here at Charlotte, just like there are learning opportunities everywhere for kids when they're not in school. But there are learning opportunities that kids can experience with peers and with skilled adults that they can't experience outside without the benefit of being around professional educators or around the opportunities to interact with their peers and socialize with their peers. What we're looking to do is increase the number of learning opportunities for our kiddos. In those 4 months, our kiddos have roughly, Charlotte Central School is the only school in Chittenden County that doesn't have full-day kindergarten. 93% of the schools in the state are full-day programs. We have 180 fewer hours compared to students in SU, and other SU schools, and typical students in Vermont. 180 fewer hours where kids can have learning opportunities. I mean, if we just even separate ourselves from the academic piece and just talk about socialization, for the first 4 months of the year, our students do not have lunch with their classmates or have recess in a consistent way with their classmates. We do our very best in those 4 months to make sure there's some kind of recess time, but teachers are really having to make tough decisions during those 4 months about, as Colleen said, these standards are the standards. These are the standards I'm being held to as an educator. They don't change based on the fact that I have 180 fewer hours over these 4 months to deliver them. So I have to make tough decisions as an educator. We have to make tough decisions as a school as to how to spend that time. So the way I see it is we have an amazing palette of resources and opportunities for kids to interact with one another, to receive some direct, skilled academic instruction, but also interact with each other, socialize, play, share a meal across the table with their peers for, in a $7 million budget, the cost of $32,000. I think that we are not doing our kids any service by not offering a full-day kindergarten program here at Charlotte. When we surveyed the parents last year, the parent community here at Charlotte, 65% of the parents who responded to the survey preferred a full-year model. So I applaud the use of data and evidence. The committee looked at data and evidence. There is gobs and gobs of research about full day versus half day. We don't have a half day program. We have a 60% full day, a 40% half day. As far as I'm concerned, our kids are missing out of 180 minutes, 180 hours, 180 opportunities to be interacting and learning in a lot of different ways, and I really want to change that.
My name is Susan Nostrand, and I have a perspective that might be helpful to some. Last year, my son went through the 2-day-week Triple E program, so that was from 8 to 11. And this year, he's in the 4-day-week Triple E program, that's 8 to 12. And just watching the difference between last year for him, 2 days a week, and this year, 4 days a week, it's phenomenal. And I could only imagine what would happen if next year he was able to be at school for full-day kindergarten. Everything that you just said, Greg, I wish I could have said those things earlier that you just said, because the transitions that he was asked to do last year, Tuesday he goes to school, Wednesday he doesn't, Thursday he goes to school, Friday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday he doesn't go to school, Tuesday he goes to school again. That was really hard for a 3-year-old. And then this year, 8 to 12, that was fantastic. Next year, imagine a full day for him. I mean, I just can't even imagine how much time it takes to get them, unpack their backpacks, put their snowsuits on, maybe go to recess. But now he's going to see Mr. B for PE. He's going to the library. He has music with Mrs. Cianciola. I mean, he's like experiencing Charlotte Central School. And this little guy is so psyched. He's so proud of his school, and he's not even in kindergarten yet. So I am 100% in favor of full-day kindergarten. And this is from not the research that's way down the line of the benefits. It's like setting this guy up for success. And I also have a daughter who's in 1st grade now, who did the hybrid model. Kind of was confusing. Half the year you're in kindergarten, and then suddenly you're in full-day kindergarten, like the real thing. Like, why not just start it in September with full-day kindergarten? It really seems to me to make the most sense for the little kid perspective.
Heather Krenshagen. I don't agree, sorry, because then it becomes an individual basis, because my son is having quite the opposite transition. So I don't agree. I do support these 2 women. I don't agree with a full-day model for these kids. I do think this transition through this part of the school year is helpful, that we are going from a half-day to a full day, so they'll be ready for next year, if you will. But as far as the research goes, I don't see that it's worth throwing the money into it, no. And then it does become individual. It's successful for some children, it's not successful for other children.
I'm sorry, I keep wanting to get to you, Bob, but it's always something like...
It's okay, I'm patient.
Chris Morse. I just wanted to, real quick, after listening to what everybody said and what Greg said, I think the discussion should be whether we stay with a hybrid or go back to a single, half-a-day kindergarten rather than hybrid versus full day. Just my perspective, it sounds like the half-day for the whole year is the way to go. I mean, I remember being a kid, and it was great to be able to get done at noon and, have the afternoon free.
All right, Bob, you're up.
I heard something this evening that sort of disturbed me a little bit. And what I'm about to say is not directed to the individuals who made the comment, but I think that the comments are emblematic of the attitudes that exist in Charlotte. One of them was Jeff, and he made a very astute comment about the fact, well, there's not really that much money in town because of the unfavorable attitude toward business that we have from the select board. I refer to Charlotte as a bucolic bubble that we're living in. That we don't want to have smokestacks and electric wires and all these things. We want to have this nice, beautiful, pristine, elegant community, but it's all private individuals, private homes, no business, no taxes to support the school system. On the other side of the coin, I heard the lady up front mention regarding the $32,000 expenditure for the kindergarten. Well, it's only $32,000. It's not that much. It's just. How many times have we heard in town meeting people propose things, it's just, it's only, it's not that much? I gotta tell you, there's a lot of tax increases that are made up of onlys and justs and buts. And the other thing that is in complete opposition to what the gentleman said, and again, these are attitudes, not, I'm not addressing these comments to the people directly, is that Charlotte has the 2nd highest median income in the state. There is another perception completely opposite to what the gentleman said, is that there are large amounts of money in the town that can be tapped to support the public education system. I think we need to reconcile those two views, because that is in fact part of the problem with how we're funding the school system. The fact that everybody in town isn't here tonight, maybe that's true. Maybe there is a large amount of money in town, and people just don't care. They don't care what their taxes are. Let them go up, they'll just pay for it and not question it. But that's putting the hardship on the folks on the other side who say, well, I don't have that amount of money to spend. We have to reconcile that. I don't know how to do it, but it has to be reconciled somehow.
Thanks, Hal Evans. I just wondered if you had any empirical, like what type of empirical deficiencies are we seeing in our first graders as opposed to the other 93% of Vermont that has the full-day kindergarten program? Is there any, data on where we're lacking?
If you look at, we do have data, and I could gather it up for you. If you look at
You can summarize just sort of the general. I was just wondering what type of deficiencies we're seeing in our first graders who are graduates of this hybrid system as opposed to the other 93% of the state.
Let me just start by saying, Hal, that I'm not proposing, I'm not suggesting or recommending this because of deficiencies that we're saying our first graders are deficient. But you asked about data, and I could gather some data for you. If you look at the reading levels of students who, at the end of their kindergarten year at Charlotte, in terms of the number of students who are reading at the benchmark level that we'd like to see them reading at in kindergarten, the percentage of students at kindergarten in Charlotte who are reading at that level is lower than the percentage of students in comparable districts leaving kindergarten and also in the SU. I would have to go back and look to show you exactly how those pan out.
No, but that's the major sort of point, is that the reading levels are lower.
I want to just reiterate that I'm not just saying that is not the driving force behind this recommendation. I think there are a lot of different benefits that kids are going to get from being here, from a full day from the start of the year till the end. Are we going to see more kids reading at grade level by the end of kindergarten? I expect we will. Will that have an impact on the interventions required for students in first grade and second grade? I expect that it will. But that is not the driving force behind this recommendation. That's one of them. It's not like, what I'm trying to say is, it's not like, oh my gosh, we have this problem. What are we going to do to solve this problem?
So what is the kind of driving force behind it? What is the impetus for sort of this push?
Well, I would say that for the first 4 months of the year, we're really having to make compromises about the way we structure the day, because the expectations for the learning expectations for kindergarten are what they are. Okay, they're set forth by the state, and now they're set forth by the Common Core state standards, which Vermont has adopted. They are what they are. Typical student, 93% of kindergarten students in Vermont, have 200 more hours, and typical teachers have 200 more hours to work with to get around to those expectations. That allows flexibility around, when am I going to work in discovery play? When am I going to make sure the kids have got a discovery in this area? Where am I going to cover everything? Those first 4 months of school, we're having to make compromises about how to fit all that in. And we've got to lean towards the non-negotiables, but at the same time, at the beginning of the year, our priority is for students to feel comfortable here, safe here, and develop a community of learners. So those things don't necessarily align. Having those additional 200 hours are going to relax the system and allow teachers more flexibility, and allow us more opportunities to apply a lot of different resources that we have here.
Okay. So you're saying kind of balancing the benchmarks contained in Common Core with the overall sort of learning environment and socialization kind of aspects of education. Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
and the reading levels aren't even Common Core related. The reading levels, I'm thinking about data even what we'd expect our students to be doing in reading prior to Common Core. Fewer of our students at the end of the year are reading at that level. Am I worried that they're not going to be there at third grade? Am I concerned about that? Sure. Do kids in Charlotte generally get there? Yes. It generally requires more support in terms of intervention, more personnel, more hours, for more kids than we would experience if we had more of those hours. That's one facet, though, of the argument.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I should remember your name.
In support services for children in the first, second, and third grade over their reading, if they have this longer kindergarten day, because it sounded to me like that's what you were saying.
I am suggesting that fewer students in first grade would need what we call Tier 2 interventions in reading, especially, yes, in first grade after a switch to full-day kindergarten.
How can you say that? I mean, based on
Well,
what?
okay, so the only thing I can base that on is when you look at comparative data between how our kindergartners are doing in terms of reading at the end of their kindergarten year compared to what their peers in local districts are doing, and then what we do to respond to that, to say they're not reading where we would like them to be and where the state says they should be, so we're going to apply intervention. So more of our students are identified based on the data reviews we do
At the end of kindergarten.
at the end of kindergarten. We
it
can't
doesn't
afford.
balance out by the end of first grade or second grade or third grade.
I would.
So the data continues, that gap between our school and other schools in the state, that continues throughout third grade.
I didn't say that. No, I said that that gap closes, and our kids do very well. That doesn't come without cost. We are applying resources, interventions, and substantial interventions to those kids to close the gap between them and what some of their peers are doing, in addition to regular Tier 1 instruction that everybody is receiving. And I'm saying there would be fewer students requiring that.
I'd like to see that data. I mean, the numbers of kids, well, how many we're talking about, and how do you know that they wouldn't have an early reading? And we're really talking about 5- and 6-year-olds at the end of kindergarten.
Correct. So what's your wondering?
Well, how can you say that it was because of?
I'm not saying that it's because of. I'm just sharing the data.
So if you have to hire a paraeducator to give intensive supports to a first grader, and maybe you don't need that paraeducator if they've had that's the suggestion. Obviously, we won't know until it happens here, but he can say it in other schools, the data is more akin to what he's talking about.
Now, we could also say, well, we're just not going to intervene with those kids and see how they do, but that doesn't align with our multi-tiered systems of support. And
believe me, Greg, my concern is like what a couple of other members have said. It's the $4,000 here, it's the $32,000 here, it's the $8,000 here. It all adds up. And believe me, I believe, wholeheartedly, this is what I do for a profession for 25 years, early intervention, and I know how kids learn and how they learn to learn. And so I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can't just arbitrarily just keep throwing money around and hope that it sticks somewhere. That's what it feels like as a taxpayer.
I guess
Well, yeah, I feel like I wish all of you would come to more of our meetings, because we get so much data at all of our regular meetings that aren't budget that will say, the reason we're investing money here is that we're hoping will need less kids on 504 plans. If we get them earlier, then maybe they don't need those more intensive supports as they continue on their career here and then as they continue at CVU and beyond. So much as we'd like all of you to come to, earlier budget meetings as well, if you come to, our agendas are always posted and there's always information about when we're getting data about, all the different areas in the school. Rhea and then Jill?
So I have two, I don't know, insights, I guess. So the kids that maybe are having problems reading, or you say that there's a discrepancy in where they are in first grade, but maybe those children are going to have that discrepancy anyway, like they have problems reading, and that's sort of inherent in how they learn, and so that might proceed with them regardless of if they have a whole day program or not. They're going to have problems reading. Do you know what I mean? But the other thing I would like to say, in a magazine that I read in Vermont Business Magazine, talked about the fact that we spend 4 times, I'm going to say it again, we spend 4 times the amount of money that we did in the 80s, and we get the exact same test results. And what I'm asking is there a breakdown in our educational system that we are throwing 4 times the amount of money, getting the same results? And is there a basic problem that needs to be addressed in our school systems? Why are we spending 4 times the amount of money, getting the same exact test results? What's wrong?
I mean, I think
I know. I'm just
what
putting,
money
but,
was worth
but,
in 1980, it's a lot different than what it is now. And I didn't read that article even after you pointed it out last time. Did you want to go ahead, Clyde?
Is anybody in a hurry to go home?
Yes.
I was going to restrain myself, but I can't. In response to the question that you
Yeah,
asked,
Clyde, can you speak louder? It's hard for people to hear you in the back.
some of us are hard of hearing.
that might be a benefit, but Vince put his finger on it when he said this is very complex, and in some ways it is, but in some ways it isn't. So bear with me while I share a story. When I was coaching Little League, because of the pressure on our fields, I had the brilliant idea that I'd take my kids down there right after school when nobody else was around, and we'd practice. Unfortunately, another coach had the same idea, so we showed up. There we are with our teams. We both wanted the field, so I said, let's you and I sit down, let these kids pick up sides and just play baseball. There wasn't a single kid among the 25 who had ever played a game of pickup baseball. They didn't know how to do the thing with the bat and the fingers and choosing sides. We had to explain it to them. Once we did and we got out of the way, they had the best time of their lives. And that sums up the risk that you're talking about to American education, all the standardization. Because what we're doing is eliminating intelligent individual thought in terms of what is essentially the false promise of the bell curve. Okay. I happen to know that Jill's kids play football. And if I say to Jill, your kids probably are not, based on statistics, going to end up in the NFL, secretly she might be upset, but I doubt it'll bother her much. It's when you start saying things like, statistically, your kids are not going to wind up being good at calculus or biology or all of those things, that people start gnashing their teeth and tearing their clothes and rending their hair and demanding something from the institution. And what the institution sends back is an oxymoron, which is the false promise that we can somehow alter the bell curve, which never goes away. When this is all finished, some of your children are going to be good at this, some of them are going to be good at that, some of them are going to be good at the other thing, and we can't guarantee any of it. I once asked Greg, no, I don't think any of you were here, for a breakdown on the gates that we go through with kids who are having trouble with math. And if you listened to his explanation, which was well-intended and educationally motivated, we could spend our whole budget teaching kids math. We could forget the rest of it. Go from one gate to another in the false hope that sooner or later everybody's going to be good at calculus. And the same argument, it applies to everything that's here, but it especially applies at the moment to the last 45 minutes of talking about all-day kindergarten, is that it's that same false promise that by spending more money on that at the end of their high school career, accepting kids who are challenged learners, we're going to somehow have some effect on the bell curve, and we're not. There has to be a modicum of effort and expenditure. It should be supported by some kind of research, which all-day kindergarten clearly is not. But this goes on and factors through all of the issues that are before us here. There comes a time when you got to look at a 90% increase in taxes, compare it with changes in performance, acknowledge that the bell curve hasn't really changed, and say there's got to be a different philosophy. Now, as an aside, I've commented before, as a matter of fact, at every town meeting for the last 10 years, that you really need to talk to your state legislators and the governor, because they're the ones who are really driving this now. Doesn't excuse us from doing what we should do, which is to not spend money on some of these things. But it is, as Vince says, a complex issue. And what we do here is not going to make the difference, the kind of difference that you want to see made. And interestingly, as Bob alluded, one of the biggest drivers of what your budget is going to be in the future, proposed building changes, isn't even in here. We're not even talking about that. You know, we're going to make all these decisions, and then later on we're going to come back with a whole nother decision packet about however many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year principal and interest are going to be. So, end of the story is, don't get sucked into thinking that we can do things that can't be done. And we, meaning this we, have to exercise some judgment.
Could I just ask a procedural question? How do you proceed at this point in terms of these packages? Do you vote on each item individually? Do you vote on them as a package? And do you do that here tonight?
Yeah, we have to have a pretty firm number for Bob by the end of the night, because the final budget hearing is a week from today at 6 o'clock. So we can make a change at that meeting, but it makes it a lot more challenging to get all the numbers ironed out in time to pass it. So yes, we'll go through, I mean, we can take the decision packets as a whole, but typically we go through them. Typically it's the will of the board to go through them one by one.
A process which we began last week.
Well, we began in September. But
Well,
yeah.
But these are the packets you're going to go through?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? It's another procedural question. Are all school boards operated this way? Because this is my only experience with a school board ever. Or do the residents actually get to ever vote on the school budget? I mean, I know we get to vote on the final number, but do residents ever get a procedural vote on the individual items? No? Oh, okay.
You got a voice, but not a vote.
Yeah. And again, as we say all the time, the earlier you give us the voice, the better. You know, if you come in September and October, especially if people want big changes. And as a lot of people have said, a lot of these decisions are completely out of our hand. I mean, I think 5% increase is due to, you know, a decision about can you explain this better?
So the tax commissioner releases a letter in December that says what her best guess is about how much money is going to need to be raised to fund the whole ed fund, which means all of the state's expenses. And this year, the letter said that the property taxes will go up by 5 cents. That's her estimate. And so 5% of the increase in the tax rate is just due to that decision by the tax commissioner. And that's true in every town in Vermont.
Not true in every town. I mean, if you're a gold town, it is. If you're
No,
not
every town in Vermont, 5%. 5%, 5 cents.
It was in the paper today, Burlington's taxes are expected to go up
5%.
12%.
Every town is 5%, then you've got your own increases.
See, I was always under the impression that with Act 60, it was, some towns got money and some towns gave money.
68.
There is a net, of how much money that all the people in your community pay into the ed fund in terms of taxes, and how much money you get back. But the tax rate itself is a different figure. And everybody has a 5% increase this year based on the commissioner's best guess about what's going to be asked and what the grand list in Vermont is worth.
Okay, anyone else? Or maybe we'll bring it back to the board to start digging in. Is there a will by, or Megan, do you want to say anything?
Well, so I'm Megan Messler. I'm a budget buddy, which was kind of put out in the newsletter a couple weeks ago. So I raised my hand. I'm new to Charlotte. I'm a mom of a kindergartner here, and I have one who will make her way there in a couple of years. I'm not an educator, but I am a parent and I'm an accountant. So when I come to this and I look at this from a accounting perspective and kind of putting my business hat on, I know the expect, and thinking about this for the past 2 meetings, it's been very interesting to me. And I know that none of these decisions are easy, but if I take a step back and I think about it, and forgetting the fact that I fully support full-day kindergarten, which doesn't need to be involved in anything else, given where everyone else has come, but they expect 12 fewer students, project to have 12 fewer students next year, with going in all different classes, not 12 different students in one class, but with that, they're expecting to cut 3 full-time teachers with 12 students and all these other things, and things they're trying to invest in seem to be the areas where I want my kid to be able to be focused on. I do believe in full-time kindergarten. My daughter is a kindergartner in the hybrid program who does go to an after-school program in the partial period, and I think I'm really glad she gets to go to that because I see amazing things that happen for her there, but I also feel like the school day during the first half of the year was not long enough for her to have the interactions that she needed, and I feel very blessed and lucky that I could send her to a really great after-school program after that. I can see that what they're doing is in line with what I want as a parent and as a taxpayer, and it seems reasonable from a budgeting perspective. I do think there are bigger issues with the overall where you're going core curriculum, but I don't know that that's going to be addressed with this budget or in this meeting. But however, I do think it has to start here. I just don't know if it starts in the budget discussions from a school board perspective. I think there's probably other times for that to happen. So that's my budget buddy 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Am I correct in assuming that it makes the most sense for us to go through these item by item?
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're not going to have 100% on any item. Does that make sense, or is there a different way people want to proceed? I'm open to any suggestions.
I think that makes sense. I'm wondering, do you have a record of things that we kind of agreed to last time, or we're starting over? I know. I'm just.
If only I were Lynn, I would have that matrix going. I do not.
Okay,
I have a rough memory, so let's just go through and how about you, everyone can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there was general consensus to take this first reduction of 1 FTE primary classroom teacher. Is that correct? And the corresponding reduction in EA staff, which is a 0.1 FTE in art. That was, okay. And that was a no by Clyde. Okay, so what are people's feelings about that 0.1 FTE in art? To remind people, Alice did come and talk to us maybe the last 2 meetings about the impact that has on the art program. I know Clyde, you're saying no to this reduction, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Eric or Mark?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm to understand that the reduction in the art is tied to having a less classes going through. I mean, it's tied to the FTE. Yeah, so I think they're tied together. I think I agree with that. That's fine.
Okay. And Adora?
Very, very divided on this one. No, I don't support it.
And with reluctance, I support the reduction of 0.1. Moving on to the next one, reduction 2.0 FT middle level content teachers for an expected savings of $126,298.
Yes.
Mark?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
And Adora?
I don't support that right now.
Okay. I do support that reduction. Moving on to the next item, corresponding reductions in expressive arts and world language staff with an estimated 0.2 reduction, 0.2 FTE reduction in world language and a 0.1 FTE in PE. I don't know if we need to do those separately.
To both.
Yes to both or no to
No.
both? No, okay. Eric?
Yes.
Mark?
I vote yes. I'm actually interested to hear Clyde on this. Just quickly, Clyde, if it's...
We've been nibbling away at these categories for several years, and I just don't believe the logic, the rationale that we can continue to do that without cost.
Understood. Understood.
Cost
Okay.
to the students, not.
Understood. Understood. But I'm going to go along with it as, yeah.
Okay. Adora?
So to me, this item is linked to the two above it. It's all one thing to me.
Yeah, that's
So, and since I have decided that I don't support the reduction of 2 middle school teachers, then I don't, you know, it wouldn't follow then that there would be a reduction in the others because of fewer classes to teach either.
Okay. And again, with reluctance, oh, I'm sorry.
Just for those of us who are interested in the actual outcome, could you announce what the vote is on each of these?
Sure. So for the first one, which is the reduction of a primary classroom teacher, 5 people voted yes. The next line item, corresponding reduction in expressive arts staff by 0.1 FTE. 4 people said yes. Clyde voted no. For the next one, reduction
No,
of...
I voted no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Clyde and Adora voted no. For the next one, reduction of 2.0 FTE middle level content teachers, 4 voted yes. Adora voted no. For the next one, corresponding reductions in expressive arts and world language staff, estimated 0.2 FTE world language, estimated 0.1 FTE in PE. Clyde and Adora voted no. The remainder voted yes. The next one, O&M savings due to personnel changes. Oh, did you vote no on this last time? Or how do you want to vote, Clyde?
It was not so much a vote as an observation that I don't believe it. I think you're going to spend it somewhere. And I think it's just misleading to try to calculate it into the budget because our operations and maintenance expenses are so extensive. I just don't think it can be done. So it's not that I am voting against it so much as I just wouldn't count this category. Sorry to confuse you, but.
Okay. I don't know how we record that. Abstention, I don't know.
The result is going to be the same,
Yeah.
I think.
Eric?
Yeah, I mean.
Mark?
Yep.
Yep.
Adora? So a 4.5 yes on that. So the subtotal proposals for reductions remains as it's listed on the sheet at $240,672. All right, moving on to the next. The next line item is to add 2.0 FTE non-intensive classroom paraeducators for the 5th grade. Clyde?
No.
Eric?
Recusing
Oh,
myself
you're
from this
recusing, okay.
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Full day kindergarten? We just want to hear it.
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Yes.
I vote yes.
What was Eric's vote?
No.
So that was two, Clyde and Eric voted no. Mark, Adora and I voted yes. Technology, 18 additional laptop computers. And this is to accommodate the larger classes in, this particular line item is to accommodate the larger classes in the middle school, correct?
Correct.
For 18 additional laptops, $14,400.
My answer for the next three is lumped together, and that is, notwithstanding observations we've had made about cost, the actual acquisition of the computers and the support stuff, I think that I have to support. I think the case has been made that it's necessary.
And for your comfort, I think Greg did say they're gonna look into leasing to see if that's a possible way to.
Can we talk about these three together?
We can do
I
one
think
by
that
one.
makes sense.
Or we can
Because
do.
I think the unless somebody wants to separate one out in particular.
No, and my question was going to be, I don't know if it's too late in the game for this, but, you know, is it possible to approve a different amount and try to get creative and try to find the best value to, you know, get as much of that budget, if not all of it, or as many of those items, if not all those items. You know, if you find out leasing's a better deal, if you find out he can find half your laptops at a better price because they're refurbished, or it sounded like there was not a clear answer from the purchasing manager in terms of whether or not he could execute it at a better price.
Right, you don't know until you're actually in the market.
And I would think you'd have maybe a little bit better outcome or leverage with him if you said, look, this is what we can spend, and let's see if we can get it done. I don't know if that's dangerous.
I think in this particular case, that won't work. But that's just my opinion. I think you're going to get in trouble if you, I think this is one where we just trust people to cut it as close as they can and forget about it.
But you're welcome to propose an alternate amount for the board to consider.
Just wanted to offer that and appreciate Clyde's input, and just if anybody else had an opinion.
Yeah, my feeling is Mike Kempfer's been doing that a long time, and I think it's probably pretty close to
Okay.
what we can do. Though, you know, maybe this leasing thing could pan out, but.
But just to understand the process, if we approve these amounts, it doesn't necessarily preclude him from doing better. He can come back and say, hey, we did better, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
have some little money
Yeah,
left in the
yeah.
budget. I mean, it's not just a blank check for him to go out.
Yeah, and that would work as, we could have a fund balance that we then could apply as revenue
Next year.
for the following budget, yeah.
And just so you know, Mike Canfor, when he goes out to bid for these, he doesn't know what's in his wallet. He's just going out with the specs. And with the SU in mind, saying this is how many of these machines we need, and where can I get my best deal? And then he gives us the price.
Okay.
So he doesn't go out with it like, oh, okay, I know I have 80,000 or whatever.
So yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So all five voted yes for the three technology items. The last one on this sheet, increase nurse to 1.0 FTE. She is currently 0.9. So this is an increase of 0.1 FTE for the nurse.
Yes.
Yes.
It's my children are probably the sole reason this is happening. Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Yes. So all five yes to increase the nurse. First item on this last page, 0.6 FTE reading, language arts specialist, $51,082. And just to remind everybody, this is a position that, at least for this year, can be funded through, and it can be funded through by using Medicaid dollars. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what it says
Okay.
right here.
Clyde?
I'm going to say yes for this year, but I just want to make a point to you people. People go off to Montpelier or Washington and it's as though they decide there are a bunch of elves around printing money someplace. Medicaid is tax dollars. And this trend that we were talking about earlier is represented here and a lot of other places. So we'd be foolish not to take those tax dollars to pay for this thing this year. But the reality is, once again, you better talk to your legislators, your governor, and whoever else about where they're going with all of these expenses, because we're not going to be able to change it. And next year, the year after, we're going to be back here with a desire to pay for this and not have the Medicaid money to pay for it, and that's going to be another $52,000 directly onto your tax bill. But the answer is, for now, for this year, yes.
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 Yes. Yes. So all 5 yes. Assistant cross-country coach, 4,037.
I have to say that I don't understand why we cannot find additional volunteers to do this. So it's a little surreal to be talking about $4,000 in a $7 million budget, but as a matter of principle, no.
Eric?
I guess I'm going to say yes as a matter of principle, just because we're not asking all the soccer parents and basketball parents to volunteer either. I mean, ultimately, we can debate about whether the athletic program could be structured differently and done outside of the current contract, but that's the way it is now. And I think for a team of that size, I don't have a problem with two coaches.
Okay. Mark?
That's my position too, is it's the team of that size, and the growth in that team over the last 2 years has been explosive. They do a great job. Yeah, I say yes.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Next item, increase early level reading titles. Purchase books levels A through I, $3,000.
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item, substitutes for best practice professional development. And again, I thought, I know we mentioned this before, but we were thinking it was going to go into the baseline. Will it go into the baseline for next year? Because we have another
It should.
year.
It should be in the
So if-
baseline. Yes.
Oh,
Well,
he's not allowed.
The board approved a similar increase last year.
Yeah, in May.
That amount is in this
Right.
baseline.
Oh, but we needed,
This
because we
is
have
an
more
ad-
teachers participating.
This is an
Okay.
addition,
Okay.
and you are aware that we overrun that line every year.
Yeah, okay.
By more than $4,000.
Okay, I'm sorry, and you did mention that last time, I just forgot, okay. Clyde?
Within the framework of how we're approaching this, I don't think we have any choice at this juncture without restructuring the whole math program. And we're not going to do that tonight, so the answer is yes.
Eric?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all 5 yes. Addition to athletic equipment supply line of $1,000.
I refuse to talk about $1,000.
Okay. Eric?
This may be a awkward question. Did we hear earlier tonight that the PTO was interested in paying for this?
Mandy did say that was the one thing that seemed the least not fair.
You get a vote, maybe?
Yeah, do I get a vote? We'll take a serious look at the uniform allowance.
No?
Mark?
Well, that's unfair. Yeah, I vote yes. That's.
No.
I guess it doesn't really
It
matter how I
doesn't
vote. I'll vote no. And final item, science supplies and materials to support science action plan inquiry initiatives. Clyde? Is 2,000 too little?
Assuming that the PTO is not going to pay for it, I'd say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter now, but I do have a question. I mean, this keeps appearing here, but it keeps appearing as the last item. And I have a hard time assessing the need. I mean, in general, I think science education is important and good to fund, but I guess I feel like I know less about this one than the others, but we already got 3 yeses, so it's a yes, so. I don't know what I think, but it's still gonna be a yes.
We can follow up on that one. I think it's there because we have never funded it. We keep putting it on the PTO. So it's at the bottom. I vote yes as well. All right, so that looks like,
Pretty much took it as it is, except for the athletic uniforms.
yeah, so the additions are 2018 415.
Approved everything except for the $1,000 for uniforms, which you've basically gotten a promise from the PTO to cover. So what was the point of us all coming here to give you input if you're not gonna take any input?
Oh, I thought we did take your input.
But you already decided all this before you even got here.
No, that's not true at all. For me, it's not true at all. I listened really carefully and I
stood.
decided sitting here.
I don't think we changed a single thing.
Well, you know, we do our work
I
up
came here to try to save our taxpayers' money, and I feel like I got nothing.
Because of open meeting law, we do all of our work up here, so.
So you're here, we're here because you have to let us be here.
Yep.
No, what I'm saying is I mean, of course, we're gonna review the materials ourselves, but we have not talked about this and come to decisions outside of what everyone has seen. So, you know, we are here and taking your input.
We did,
And we've been thinking about this a long time though, too. So, you know, it could seem like we're just set in stone. But we have been thinking about it, and, you know, I know Isadora said I definitely listened, and, yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Just, you know, to say we didn't listen is unfair. And two, we took the reductions as well as the proposed increases.
Right.
It's not like we just approved all increases here. In fact, what we just did is actually decrease spending.
Right.
If you do the math. But I understand your point, and it may seem a little frustrating, but we come here, you know, the budget meetings are 4 times over a couple months, but then we're here every month, all the time, listening to proposals and whatnot. I encourage you to come.
I don't have time to come to all your meetings. I made time to come tonight.
I don't have time to come to all our meetings either.
It's frustrating to hear a lot of people express a lot of really good arguments. The one about the full-time kindergarten blows me away that you guys voted for that after everything you heard tonight. I'm sorry, it's disgusting, because it doesn't make any sense to me.
It was a 5-minute discussion, and the kindergarten class has been discussed many times here.
I was here for the last meeting when there was a big discussion about it, and basically the same points were made. There was even another point that was made last week that wasn't made this week about the detriment in the later years, in the I think it was the middle and high school years. It was found to be a detriment to have full-day kindergarten, which I wasn't even brought up tonight. But after hearing all that evidence, you know, unless somebody's lying to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, just to Mark's point, I mean, we heard very extensive presentations before that. And we'll make sure that we can figure out an easy way for people to access the kindergarten study, since there was a lot of interest tonight. We'll try to make it a really easy, clickable thing on the website. I have no idea how to do that, but we can find someone out. One last thing, Bob?
Just for the record, this is not cast in stone. This is gonna go to the voters on town meeting day, correct?
Oh, correct, and we'll have a final budget that the board will approve next Tuesday, and then that'll be the number that's warned for town meeting. And it looks like now, if you take the reductions and the additions, it's a reduction from the baseline, is that how we say it? The baseline of a reduction of $22,257. Is that right?
If you say it is, then yes. I
Okay.
haven't done it that way, but
Oh, okay, well, what's our number?
I have a new budget of $7,511,544.
I'm sorry, can you say that slower?
7511544.
Yeah.
$7,511,544.
Okay. And have you figured out yet, the difference?
Tax rates?
No, I know you can't figure that out yet, but, what the difference is from last,
2.13.
so a 2 point.
And that's as far as my quick math has worked down the column.
What I was trying to make was, if anyone disagrees with the decision of the school board, we have the option of voting it down on town meeting day when the budget is put before the citizens.
Yes. But as a whole number, not individual.
Correct.
You know, we did hear a lot of very good points made about the lack of revenue in town, lack of a base of business and commerce that might change the revenue picture, expenses over the course of decades in public education. None of those are the things that double your tax bill over 10 years. Okay, the cross-country assistant coach, I mean, yes, little things add up a little bit, but the fact of the matter is, to have any meaningful impact on our tax burden, we should be directing our attention to the state legislature, because take all those 4,000s out of the budget, we cut 240,000, and the only, the vast majority of that was teaching. Those are the decisions that we've had to make in this budget cycle. We've had to remove a lot of teaching capacity. And, some people aren't going to be comfortable with that. And some people, on the other hand, aren't going to be comfortable even after taking those sacrifices with the amount that we're spending. But that's driven primarily by the entire state's education finance system.
I understand what you're saying about that. The fact that you guys don't have a lot of control over that, and that our tax rates are not set by you and that kind of thing. Have you ever considered a strategy whereby you reduce the budget to the point where people start screaming at the select board to do something about it because you can't do anything about it? You know what I mean? So you reduce the budget. Let's say you fund none of the stuff that was on there and you keep it at what it was minus the reductions. Then, people are going to go to the select board and say, you need to do something. You need to get more business in here. We need to do something to generate more revenue so we can have a better school, as opposed to just not pushing them on it. Because right now they're not being told that they need to do something about it. I think it would send a strong message for the school board to say, look, we're going to cut the budget of the school because our taxpayers can't afford it. If you guys aren't going to do your jobs and bring business into the town, this is going to be the implications of it.
Seems like it's a big, I mean, I don't know, it seems like it's a big argument because there's people, you have people in town who say, we don't want business, we want, we're willing to pay more. So I think that's a bigger question, but I think it'd be great if people who have an interest in the school would attend select board meetings and try to raise that point. I always think I'm gonna go to select board meetings, but I've been to one ever, so. But, I would encourage anyone here to go there and advocate on the behalf of the school portion of your tax bill. All right, I just lost my agenda. We are at,
Well, look at mine.
oh, here's somewhere. Let's see. All right, we are at 4.1.3. This was yours, Bob, review articles.
The material that handed you earlier on is, incorporates all that you've just discussed, less the changes made tonight, which were the additional, the additional reductions in EA and world language I didn't have on the sheet I was working on prior to your meeting tonight, and the reduction or the change of the $1,000 on the final page. So that's what you're going to see tonight, or you see in here, is $18,612 richer than the actual number had I known everything you were about to do this evening. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Maybe not. The first page is the changes made to your baseline budget of $7,600,608. It includes the health insurance premium adjustment from budget to what your carrier actually is committed to for next year. Adjustments in a variety of lines coming from CSSU assessments, incorporating both changes that board made to their budget, as well as adjustments based on final ADM numbers coming out of the state. And ADM student count is roughly how CSSU assessments are allocated among member schools. In addition, Mike and I have included the Medicaid Funded position, you see the additional $51,000 in expense, and down below, you see the additional $51,000 in offsetting revenue. Those are gonna be recorded on two different pages, the revenue page and the expense page when we get done. Questions on that page in my markup? As I say, it's within $18,000 of what you finally agreed to tonight, and Mike and I now that will draft all of this in its final form for your consideration at next meeting. Page 2 is the revenue forecast, updated and finalized for the next year. The largest adjustment made from the prior draft you saw is incorporating the latest figures we've gotten from Agency of Education on special education revenue, given the service plan that you delivered to them some 2 months ago. We're forecasting that you're going to have revenue in the 14-15 year of $855,000, $855,379. Last page, take all of that information, put it on a tax rate calculation for the state. It starts with the expenditure budget at the top. We subtract out the $880,000 of local revenue I just talked about to get to net education spending of $6,649,000 and change. You divide by the number of pupils, equalized pupils that you educate in the community of Charlotte at the pre-K-8 school. To get spending per pupil of $15,778. I could take a tangent here. I'd like to apologize to Jill for not having her number that she asked for the last time at this meeting as it began. That number, if you want to jot it down somewhere on your sheet of paper, the statewide average spending per equalized pupil for 13-14 is $13,546.44. Charlotte's spending of $15,089 is approximately 11.5% higher than that statewide average. And I apologize, Jill, but I've checked the box. We take the spending per pupil forecasted of $15,778, divide by the base amount recommended by Mary Peterson at this point in time, approved by the legislature before they leave session in May, of $93.82, to get a spending adjustment number of $168,170. That's multiplied times Mary Peterson's recommended statewide tax rate of $1.01. Note that that's up 7 cents from last year's number. To get to anticipated union homestead tax rates in Charlotte of $169.85. You only use that tax rate on the portion of children within the community that are educated in this school. So 66% of your resident children are educated here. The balance are educated at CVU. You multiply the tax rate times that percentage and then divide it by the CLA. The net of all that is the estimated tax rate for next year is $1 and 0.0695, or a 5.56% increase over the current year. When Mike and I revise the numbers based on the 3 or 4 changes that you've done, the statewide tax rate comes out to be 10665. Questions?
The teachers' pay, or for what's coming up for the teachers' raises, correct? That doesn't incorporate this into that?
It includes what the board felt was appropriate to cover their negotiations with the union.
Okay, so it does cover their pay.
Yes. Depending on what.
Depending on how the negotiations end is.
We included an assumption of where those negotiations would end up. So we didn't.
But regardless of what happens in the teacher negotiations, this budget will not go up.
It can't go up.
This is the budget.
Okay, that's what I was trying to ask. Thank you.
But if anyone wants to donate money to the PTO's general fund,
Take your check.
yep.
And that does not include the 5-cent increase the state is assessing us, or does it?
It does.
Yes, it
No,
does.
that's the
Okay,
thing.
thank you.
Yeah.
which is basically an income tax based on property.
Right.
Yeah. I'd like to see Yantowski answer that question at the town meeting about raising taxes when the governor says he's not going to raise taxes.
He was here at the last meeting, but legislature did just
They
open,
start
so.
today, yeah.
So, but yeah. All right, 5.0 action matters. 5.1 approve announced tuition. We need a horn. What's the-
Did I hand that out too?
No.
I should have.
Thank you.
Unless I forgot it completely. Can you defer that to your next meeting, please? Because I didn't do the sheet for you to calculate that.
Yes.
Your meeting next week.
Do I need a motion to table it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do I have a motion to table approving announced tuition?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6.0 consent agenda. Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7.0 director's comments.
No.
Mark? Or
No.
Megan? No? Mark?
No.
I just want to say that I spent the day working on the budgets of 5 other schools from another part of the state, and it's difficult, and it's difficult in very similar ways. We're not doing this alone, and we're not saying things that no one else is saying on all sides of, I mean, our kindergarten thing is kind of unique, but a lot of these other questions and the fundamentals of democracy and the fundamentals of economics, all those things, I really appreciate everyone being here and participating. Sometimes I agree with you, sometimes I don't. Different individuals spin my thinking in different ways. It's really, really valuable to have your voices here. Even if you think we're coming out in a place other than where you hoped we would, it's really important that you're here. I think it's really important that you participate civically beyond attending school board meetings. It's hard, and I would encourage you also to read what's going on in other parts of the state with regard to education funding. And again, we've said it many times tonight, talk to the legislators who really influence all of this more than any of us do, frankly.
Yes, thank you all for coming. And if you think of it, maybe you could let us know how the best way you think we can motivate more people to come. Is it blasting Front Porch Forum more, or what way can we get people coming much earlier in the process so that you sort of can have more of an impact on the work that we're doing up here. So feel free, you can go to the school website, and there's a way to email the whole school board, and our phone numbers are readily available. But if you have a good way that we can encourage more of you to come and come earlier, that would be great. I was thinking cookies. We don't have money to buy donuts. If you want to bring them.
Right, Adora, snacks, that's what we did at negotiations last night.
Nice.
We did
All right,
potluck
8.0,
snacks.
confirm next meeting dates. Our next meeting is here next Tuesday. I think because of history, it's at 6 instead of 6:30, so you're all welcome to come back. And 9.0, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Aye.
Right.